What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for a safety violation on Minor Evac. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Minor Evac is the map where we have to fight our way to the evac ships, and defend them from the infested as they launch. We have to successfully defend 5 ships to win. On brutal difficulty, we lose the game if we lose more than 1 ship. Amon has a giant laser in the top right corner that attacks your stuff. There are mines around the map that will deal 250 splash damage if you don't dodge. All enemy units explode when destroyed.
We have Edwin Home and Joni in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Yeah, good, thank you.
How do we rank the commanders this week, Joni?
So, we effectively have 3 environmental mutators here, more or less. The advantage to the laser drill is that obviously it can be taken out of commission, which helps. So, I'm very simply going to be ranking people based on how effectively they can deal with 2 environmentals plus the laser drill, basically, and then any map tips. But it's not a complicated one this week. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, well, what do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, I think it's hard to overstate how easy it is to take out the laser drill on this map as well. We mentioned, like it's a pretty easy clearing map. There's not like big bases or something you have to get through really to get to the laser drill, and there's not really defenses around it, much at least. So it's very easy to take out. The other nice thing here is that Mag-Nificent tends to be a more difficult mutator if you're having to like clear big enemy bases while dealing with mag mines. But on a map like this where clearing is very easy and the main enemy waves you're going to be dealing with, you can just completely clear the mag mines before they come anywhere near you. Makes it a relatively easy mutator. So it's really like 80% of the mutator is going to come from self-destruction, which just isn't that hard of a mutator, but there are a lot of enemies. So if you can't keep them at bay from your units and your units are a little bit squishy, then that could be tough. But as long as you have good crowd control and good area damage options, you'll be, having a pretty easy time this week.
All right, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur has pretty good area damage, free units to buffer for the self-destruction. He has deep tunneling, brutalisks to get to the drill anytime you need to, so you don't even have to like leave units there so much. You can just deep tunnel over, kill the drill, deep tunnel back. The one area you might have a little bit of trouble with is getting your brutalisk up as quickly, because you are going to be having to sort of crowd control the mag mines at the start of the game. So it could slow things down. As long as you're careful, it's not going to prevent you from getting one, but it might make things take a little bit longer as you're dodging those. So even with that, I think he's still going to be really good this week, so I had him in S tier.
S tier, what do you think, Joni?
I didn't have him in S tier mainly because, as ET stated, biomass farming right at the start, the laser drill provides a bit of a problem there as well, I thought. So that's one where the mutator combination this week, I think, can impede your progress to a significant degree on that, dependent to a certain extent on sort of technical skill. Exactly as ET said, once the laser drill has been revealed, camping it is not difficult. Personally, I would probably be inclined just to bury a couple of swarm hosts right next to it so that they can deal with it whenever it comes off cooldown. Other than that, relatively straightforward. I had Abathur in A tier, mainly because I think there are other commanders this week who just have a significantly easier time. They don't have that early game problem.
What do you think about A tier, Edwin Home?
I think that's fine. I think, A tier versus S tier this week kind of comes up to whoever wants to play him and how comfortable they are with dodging mag mines. It is something where, one mag mine hits and you've got to rebuild your entire spore or, get a new roach or whatever. So it can definitely cause problems if you do mess up. So I'm fine with A tier.
All right, A tier it is. Moving on. Oh, wait, prestige-wise, second one? Because you do want swarm hosts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, swarm hosts, and then being able to deep tunnel directly to the drill the very first time is kind of handy.
Right, let's move on. Alarak, where do we have him?
Alarak is very good this week. He's got a relatively small ball of stuff to move around. the mothership does really significant area damage, so hopefully keeping self-destructing units away from you. Similarly, Alarak's destruction wave, very, very good classically against self-destruction as well. The other thing that one can do is using sort of impassable terrain, etc., flying a void prism over to the laser drill and simply using overcharge on that to deal with the laser drill, probably wanting to distract it with a unit in the first instance so the void prism doesn't get targeted on its way over, is probably a good idea. With all of that being said, Alarak's very strong this week. I had him in A tier as well.
A tier. What do you think, Edmund Home?
Yeah, just don't eat a mag mine and be a little careful, utilize destruction wave and you should be just fine. So yeah, I had him in A tier as well.
All right, A tier for Alarak. Prestige-wise, third one?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Arcturus, where do we have him?
Arcturus is extremely good on this map in general. Bunkers are great. ESOs don't care about self-destruction or mag mines or anything like that really at all. I guess I don't think we explicitly mentioned, but you do want to be careful to clear mag mines before a ship activates because they can hit the ship at that point. So, you don't want to just do ESOs. Make sure you clear the area after the ESOs have cleared the actual units. Laser drill, you can just have a bunker with, I think even anti-air guns, right, can hit the laser drill, so that'll kill it really fast. And you barely have to deal with it at all. And yeah, repairs, bunkers, whatever you want to do really as Minsk. You've got options as Minsk this week, so I had him in S tier.
Options as Arcturus. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, I totally agree. A cornucopia of options for Arcturus this week. Couple of noteworthy things as a comment on this map in general. Like ET said, clearing the areas for defense prior to the ships actually activating is quite important. On that note, worth mentioning that the first ship you can afford to lose. If you are going to struggle to clear that area prior to it activating, it doesn't matter. It's not a huge impediment to your progress on this. And that's something that for a commander like Arcturus, where sometimes mobility on the map in the early game, not necessarily as much if you're playing P3, I would suspect, but, that early game issue can be circumvented by simply letting the first ship die, particularly if it spawns in a less easy to get to area. Arcturus' ability to just drop stuff anywhere on the map where he's got vision is super, super useful. Or where he's had vision even is super, super useful. So I had Arcturus in S tier as well.
What do you think, Edmund Home?
I'm sorry, wait, where did he put him?
S tier.
Oh, I did too, didn't I? I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, I went first. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for further input after that.
Say more. We need the video to be longer.
Both of you
I think propagators are going to be a real problem for me.
Yeah, those
But how about gift exchange? Okay, Johnny, time to switch to last week's jacket again. Okay, Arcturus S tier. All right, moving on. Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis is one of the commanders that's going to struggle a bit more with this. He requires not an insignificant army presence on the map in order to get anything done, which obviously from the point of view of self-destruction can be problematic. One of the things with Artanis' units, and on this map, there is that area of dead ground behind some of the ships, which can be really useful to hide tempests in. However, the amount of overkill that tempests do, particularly on the infested units and such, means that they're not always the best and not always sufficient on their own to defend the ships. So you will need a ground presence. Regardless of whether that's dragoons or zealots, self-destruction is still going to play a really, really significant factor on that. Tempests themselves being very slow-moving units, Mag-Nificent can well come into play as additionally, potentially better off using observers to clear mag mines, etc. All in all, Artanis is, I personally think, not great for this. I had him like B to C tier.
B to C. What do you think, Edmund?
Yeah, I had largely similar thoughts. You do your splash damage options as Artanis are all a bit scared of things like mag mines. You know, you've got High Templar and Reavers, but Reavers really aren't the greatest splash damage against this particular comp of infested, anyways. Zealots tend to clump up a lot, so self-destruction not going to be a fun time. You do have Shield Overcharge, which helps out a lot against self-destruction. I think that's probably his best tool he's got. And with things like that, and the fact that he can just kind of, again, I mean, he can deal with the laser drill. Who can't, really, but at least he can. So I had him in B tier.
B tier. Are you okay with B tier, Joni?
Yeah, very happy with that.
All right. Put Artanis in B tier. Prestige-wise, do you want third prestige?
Yeah, I think probably.
All right. Moving on.
Probably, yeah.
Moving on. Dehaka. Where do we have him?
Dehaka is excellent this week. You've got great defensive options for the ships. You have Dehaka to kind of clear mag mines. You have pack leaders. You have perfectly cromulent options for dealing with the laser drill, just a couple impalers. Obviously, impalers on the front lines are going to be pretty useful as well, but you could also go guardians, so you can deal with the dead space or utilize the dead space. You can go mutalisks and utilize the dead space. And then again, Dehaka and pack leaders can't be understated or can't be overstated how good they are. So an easy S tier for Dehaka this week.
Easy S tier. Just to clarify, did you say prominent options or something else?
Promulent?
Promulent. Because the notepad thing is giving me a red underline, so I'm not sure if it's a real word. I have to look it up later. If it is, the definition will be on screen. Anyway, what do you think, Joni?
Yes, completely agreed.
It's a word? I also agree it's a word, yeah. Wait, oh, it's about the Haka. Okay. Oh, okay. What do you about the Haka? Okay.
Sure. I agree with Prominent as well, but the Hacker is an excellent example whereby if you struggle to get to the first ship in time, it really doesn't matter. If your macro is good and you've got Glevig out early, then brilliant. That first ship shouldn't be a problem either. But the Dehaka unit itself is quite weak in the early game, so that combination of laser drill and self-destruction may present issues with Dehaka being a melee unit. As soon as you get him online and you've got your pack leaders up and running, you really should have no dramas at all, though. Pack leaders can defend the ships perfectly, adequately, entirely on their own. Yeah, easy S tier for Dehaka for me this week.
Easy S tier. Prestige-wise, second one?
Yes.
Moving on. Fenix, where do we have him?
Fenix plays pretty standardly when you're using P2, which I think is probably sensible. It means you're using less material, moving less material around the map, which is always helpful. Kaldalis is going to go down all the time, so replacing him regularly is going to be required due to self-destruction. At the same time, also not necessarily the worst thing in the world. He's extremely cheap to replace, and actually charging in, face tanking everything means that you will be clearing mag mines pretty efficiently as you go, just bearing in mind to be replacing that particular shell. He's very good and very strong when you are doing like those things. Camping the laser drill can be more of an issue just in terms of what are the obvious options for doing so. Potentially you don't necessarily want to dilute your champion comp by doing that. Maybe sending a Mojo to just hover over it. It's not the easiest, it's not the best in the world. It is, however, certainly very workable. I had Fenix A to B tier this week.
A to B. What do you think, Edmund?
Yeah, largely similar thoughts. He, in theory, can perfectly deal with the laser drill with Kaldalis, but you'd rather have Kaldalis anywhere else. So the backup options, like I was thinking Taldarin or like Mojo or something like that. We'll deal with it, but it's not going to be like an insta-kill like Caldalis basically will be. Self-destruction as well will rip through Caldalis a little bit faster than he normally would, which is a bit painful because he is your main source of splash damage. You do have Warbringer, but I think he'll still have a relatively easy time. It's just not quite S tier, so I had him in A.
A. Okay. Joni also had him in A to B, so that's also A. That's where he ends up being. A tier. Prestige-wise, second one. Moving on, Han and Horner. Where do we have him?
Han and Horner is another one that's going to have a slightly more painful time this week. I've never found them like great at this mutation in general. They do have Hellbats, which are good, but you tend to lose quite a few of them, and self-destruction is not going to help with that either. Laser drill, again, anyone can deal with a laser drill. You just have to put some units over there. Vikings, in theory, can do well here because they should be able to kill things before they can get right on top of them with self-destruction, and they have a beefy enough health pool that they can survive a few blasts. Beyond that, they're not terribly great in my opinion. You do have strike fighters with the flames left behind and everything like that, but yeah, I think they're good, but they're not as good as some others, so I had them in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, absolutely agreed. There is, I think, the option to potentially just teleport battle cruisers over to the laser drill as and when required. Like ET said, it's sort of a pick your poison on that one, in the sense that it is dealable with and do what you see fit. Han and Horner do have that option, however, and they do hit hard and they are extremely mobile, which is always useful. Self-destruction is going to be a big problem here. It's the nature of the beast, hence why they're ranked lower. I had them B to C tier, actually. I felt they would have a slightly harder time than Artanis, but, splitting hairs.
All right. B to C is also close to B, which is where Edmund Home had him, so we will have him in B. Prestige-wise, second one? You did say Viking, so second one or first one?
I think you could go either one realistically.
Okay, so second one or first one. By the way, I just saw your message. It's Chromium. I said Google Chrome. I thought it was prominent or prominent. I have here in problems. That's why I have these headphone things that have the volume turned all the way up so I can hear properly, and that still didn't do the trick. So that's unfortunate. Anyway, we have Han and Horner in B tier, first or second prestige. Moving on, Karax. Where do we have him?
Karax is extremely good this week. If you're playing P3, then the reality to it is the only thing you're going to need to do is micro probes and observers and build static around the ships and take everything else out with the Spear of Adun. So, yeah, Karax P3, once again, plays A very normally and B pretty cheaply. I had him in S tier, so I don't think there's really a lot more to say than that, to be honest. So, yeah, S tier.
What do you think, Edmund Home?
Yeah, I mean, you can build cannons to deal with the laser drill and cannons to deal with everything else, and then some cannons at home just in case an attack wave makes it there, and it's a very easy time. So I had him in S tier as well.
S tier. Moving on, prestige-wise, third one, Kerrigan. Where do we have him?
Kerrigan is okay. She has Kerrigan herself to kind of just Omega Worm to and from the laser drill with her army as needed to kill it. So that's a very handy way to be able to deal with the laser drill while also not having to just kind of sit some units up there as much. Her actual army comp does relatively well as well, and Kerrigan will do quite well for clearing the mag mines. She can just kind of leap around, trigger them all, areas ready, and then you can deploy lurkers and maybe some hydralists to deal with the air. You have plenty of detection for the banshees with the Omega Worms and plenty of mobility. So I think she's pretty good this week. I had her in A tier.
A tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, I agree. I think despite the fact that Omega Worms give you additional mobility around the map, which is useful in terms of getting to the laser drill, I do think there is an argument to be made to play P1 this week in order to deploy sort of buzzsaw lurkers, both around the ships and around the laser drill. Yes, it's going to take you a little bit more time to actually get to the laser drill. However, Kerrigan herself is more than strong enough to facilitate that and effectively clear a path for you to just deploy 3 or 4 lurkers next to the laser drill to just deal with it every time it comes off cooldown, and then placing creep all over the map and really boosting both Kerrigan and your lurkers with the malignant creep buff, I think is also potentially an option. Having said that, you don't need to do it. You can use Omega Worms with a different prestige if you want to. I also had Kerrigan in A tier.
A tier, so it's unanimous A tier, regardless of what prestige you pick, and that's where she ends up being A tier. Moving on, Nova. Where do we have him?
Nova is also very good this week. She has plenty of splash damage options, siege tanks with spider mines probably being the very obvious one. You can set your libs up in the dead ground behind the transports as well, which is always a bonus. I suspect there is probably the argument to be made to play P3 here, in that you can then get Nova over to the laser drill first thing, sort of ASAP, in order to deal with that, and then deal with it in whatever way you see fit later on. Having said that, P1 also definitely an option. Her combat suit very, very useful for dealing with infested waves in the early game. So lots of options. I suspect mechanically slightly more complicated than some of the S tier commanders, although I could probably be pretty easily persuaded to put her in S tier. I had her in A tier, however.
A tier. What do you think, Edmonton?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nova, dyed her roots this week, so she is once again blonder than Kerrigan, and I don't know. I don't think it's that mechanically demanding to siege up your libs once every 5 minutes behind a ship and then drop some Raven turrets. I think just like 1 or 2 liberators at the laser drill completely shuts it down forever, so you don't have to think about it, basically. And then I would probably go P1, so you have extra libs, extra Raven turrets, and then the combat suit being able to kind of like blink around similarly to Kerrigan leaping around and clearing out the mag mines. I think Kerrigan's a little easier to clear the mag mines, but Nova is way easier on literally everything else. Just nothing's ever going to touch your liberators, and if anything even thinks about it, you just drop a defensive drone and it's completely free and easy, or a airstrike. So I had her in S tier.
S tier. You said you would be convinced for the S tier, Joni?
I'm totally happy with that. I'm still seeking that elusive 0 APM average game. Hence my predilection for Nova P3. But no, I'm very happy with S tier. She's very strong.
For the record, not even a triple S can get a 0 APM game. I've tried. Don't worry. It's not happened yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. Moving on, Raynor. Where do we have him?
Raynor is all right. He has bunkers, which is pretty good, and he has spider mines, which is okay, and he can camp the laser drill or just drop units onto it when it respawns. I'd probably just camp it, and that's fine. And siege tanks are pretty good, so he's quite good defensively on this map. He's not going to have too much trouble just stemming a marine through to kind of clear mag mines. So it's not a bad week for Raynor. I don't think he's quite S tier, but I did have him in A.
A. What do you think, Joni?
Yeah, I totally agree, actually. For a commander who's not noted for his mobility, the Hyperion gives you enough options to get to the laser drill super, super early game that actually Raynor's squishier units, which one might assume would be caused problems in clearing mag mines, etc., by the laser drill, actually you can negate that pretty early in the game. So I think it presents less of a problem if you do things in the right order with the right units than it may appear to on the surface of things. So very, very similar to ET, bunkers good, siege tanks good. I had Raynor in A tier as well.
A tier. Okay. Pretty good for Raynor. Speaking of pretty good, Stet Boy, where do we have him?
Yes, speaking of pretty good, Stetmann just has no issues at all. Green Zone Super Gary with P2, clearing stuff, simply doesn't need to worry about the laser drill. So unlike some of the commanders that we've got, it means that it's not even necessarily a priority to take it out, particularly early days. The advantage you've got is that his stet zones do enable mobility to get there quickly enough and deal with it anyway, at which point camping, probably with lurkers, if I'm being completely honest, is likely his best way of dealing with it as well. The reality to it is Stetmann's extremely good on this map. he's extremely good in general terms. So yeah, an easy S tier for me on this one.
Easy S tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, the most difficult question this week with Stetmann is whether you use F2 or not. Because if you don't F2, then you can just leave like 10 Zerglings at the drill. But if you do F2, then you need to leave Lurkers, because then they'll be burrowed. And so that's really the only question you have to answer, I think, this week. The rest of it's pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, Green Zone is good, and this Mag Mines, Zerglings don't care about Mag Mines at all. You don't even really have to clear very carefully if you don't want to, because they'll take 10 damage. So yeah, it's a pretty easy week. I had him in S.
S. Okay. Prestige wise, do we go second or third?
I mean, this map is historically pretty good for playing third prestige. I think, in all honesty, this week it is dealer's choice. It is an easy enough mutation that you will be perfectly happy in S tier with either choice.
All right.
Yep.
By the way, for Raynor, prestige third one.
Yeah, or zero if you're going pure buffalo.
Yeah.
Or zero. Nova first or third?
Yes.
Okay. Kerrigan, anyone, like we said earlier. Okay. Stet boy, second or third. Whichever you prefer. Speaking of, whichever you prefer, Stukov, where do we have him?
Stukov is pretty good this week. You just send endless waves of infested, and that clears all of the mag mines, so life is pretty easy on that front.
Maybe next time we should say Stukov is pretty infested this week. So every week we can say Stukov is pretty infested this week. Whether he's good or not, nobody can tell. That's a unique way to introduce someone, so that you know that it can't be applied for anyone else. So it'll be a different time, a different thing every time we go through Stukov. But anyway, I digress. Please continue.
Yes. So it's not a bad week for him at all. The only real problem is maybe getting your bunkers repositioned if you struggle with that, but as long as you've got them near enough to the ships, nothing's going to get to the ships. You're going to clear mag mines with free units. You can really just kind of ignore the laser drill if you want to, or clear it if you want to. Just set a couple like Diamondbacks up there or something, but it's really not even a requirement, because again, the laser drill is a single target thing and you've got infinity free units. So it's a very simple week for Stukov. I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, it's yet another commander where losing that first ship potentially will just be what you choose to do, so that you can just concentrate for the first sort of 8 or so minutes of the game on just getting stuff online. Really shouldn't have any dramas. P3, frustratingly from my point of view, but pleasingly for some of the solo queues perspective, is probably going to be the way to go in order to get that critical mass up. Reality is that Stukov is more infested than any of Amon's infested maps, so S tier.
That's true. He is more infested than Amon's infested maps, even Dead of Night. So he goes in S tier. By the way, I don't think the first prestige is bad, but do you still recommend the third one? Because you can totally dodge
I don't think it's
with Diamondbacks.
Yeah, P1's not bad, but let's be real. 95% of people playing Stukov this week will be on P3, and that is completely acceptable. But yeah, you could go P1 as well.
You know what? I resent that 95%. I will personally go into the solo queue and play a Stukov, so it'll be down to 94%. Take that, 95%.
Let's be more realistic about the player count. I think that'll drop it to like 80%.
Ouch.
But if all three of us do that, then we could be 50-50.
There are 6 of us still playing this game. Oh my Donnie. Moving on. Swann, where do we have him?
Swann is potentially sort of surprisingly good. There is the tried and tested method here of trapping the laser in order that you don't actually need to deal with the drill itself. So simply building a bunker in vision range, making sure that it is attacked by the laser, and then just mass repairing it for free, deals with the laser for the rest of the game, which is quite a nice thing. Probably easier with Swann than sending something over there, although that is an option for later in the game as well. Once that's said and done, building up static, clearing the areas, potentially going to present a little bit more of a problem, but you do have useful things like concentrated beam, pulse cannon, etc. to help out with that kind of thing. SCVs being microed appropriately on their own shouldn't have any dramas clearing mag mines. They're pretty mobile, really. So I think personally that Swann has a pretty easy time of it. It is, as always, or as very regularly, not as easy as with Karax, but I still think he's basically strong enough to go into S tier this week.
What do you think, Espenholm?
Yeah, and on this map, once you get your turrets up, they are stronger than Karax's turrets against the infested because of flaming betties. So they are, no splash damage turrets for Karax, and there are for Swann. So it's a very, very, very easy to hold once you clear, but the clearing can be a little bit annoying. Dropping Ares warbots is always a good way to kind of just click them through, basically, make sure they're spread out a little bit, and they'll clear a lot of the mag mines and units and things like that. So it's not terrible. I'd say P2 most likely. You could go P1 if you want to. I know a lot of people like P1, but I had him in S tier as well.
All right, S tier for Swann. Nice. Prestige-wise, second one. Moving on, Tychus. Where do we have him?
Tychus is the commander this week where you don't even really have the question of how many units do I need to dedicate to the laser drill? Because the answer is 1, because you're going to have a unit that's not doing anything anyways because of P2. So you can sick, if you want to pay attention, Sam is the ideal one, because as soon as the laser drill comes online, you just chuck a grenade onto it and it's dead. Beyond that, he has Blaze, who is pretty good this week. He has Sirius, who's very good this week. Basically every single merc he can summon is pretty good this week. So it's extremely, extremely easy for him, and he is S tier as well.
S tier as well. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, it is extremely easy for him this week. The only query I had in my own mind, and I really don't think it prevents him from being S tier, is that getting up to what is probably going to be your third outlaw for Sam or Sirius or something of the like. From my point of view, playing Tychus P2, looking at probably getting Sirius out first because his turrets do have exceptional utility in defending this. Probably then sending Tychus over to the laser drill in the first instance to deal with it, I suspect is the way to do this. Despite the fact his outlaw units are extremely strong, in the early game with the infested waves, you are going to have vision on the outlaws the whole time. So they are going to be chipped away by the laser drill, and it does make a bit of a difference. So dealing with it really early is quite important. Tychus can very happily do that on his own while Sirius defends a ship. So that would be my sort of suggested order of play in terms of how things work. Once you've dealt with that, yes, microing one unit at a time to get mag mines active, etc. Not the most difficult thing in the world. S tier.
S tier. Is it laser drill? I'm thinking of a mutator that doesn't actually get vision unless an actual enemy unit, not an infested, gets vision. It might be something else, but it might be laser drill that doesn't get vision unless an actual unit, not an infested, gets vision. I'll have to recheck that, because if it is true that infested don't give the laser drill vision, then this became a whole lot easier for Tychus. But I'll have to check. I don't think Blizzard messed that up, did they? I mean, the whole point of this mutation is the infested give the drill vision. So if they don't, that'd be kind of silly. It kind of messes with the whole point of this thing. Anyway, it's S tier for Tychus, even with the infested giving the laser drill vision. So that's where he goes. Prestige twice, second one, right?
Yep.
All right. Vorazun, where do we have him?
Vorazun, particularly given the increasing list of, is not S tier. She has the significant problem that despite Shadow Strike granting a bit of immunity, her hardest hitting, in inverted commas, splash damage unit and don't at me in the comments. I'm well aware that's only during Shadow Strike. Are DTs, and they will suffer from self-destruction, which is the perennial throughout this. So regardless of positioning some DTs near the laser drill or whatever mechanism you want to do that, she does have the mechanical problems of dealing with being primarily a ground-based melee commander, and then utilizing, her air units as and when needed against those sorts of things. So I do think Vorazun actually is going to have a bit more of a problem than a lot of commanders this week. I had her sort of B to C tier, potentially due to a lack of imaginative thinking on my part in terms of how to deal with all of this appropriately. So interested to hear what ET's got, whether he's come up with any better ideas than me.
All right, let's hear it, Edwin Hum.
Oh boy. I mean, clearly, just a few DTs. Again, as long as you don't F2, like 3 DTs is going to deal with the laser drill extremely quickly. So that's gone now. Clearing, again, not very hard. Mag-Nificent isn't that big of a deal as long as you are proactive about your clearing. So that's gone as well. The main problem then is self-destruction. I think it is a problem for the DTs. I am more so than a lot of people willing to just go mass Blink Stalker as Vorazun, I think, because the shield regen kind of gives them a lot of survivability, but Blink Micro is a bit of a pain. I just have a lot of practice with it from the melee ladder. So I think Blink Stalkers with just a few DTs to kind of Shadow Strike when they have it off cooldown and then hold position the rest of the time is going to do just fine, especially with things like Gravity Well if things start to get overwhelming. Things like Time Stop. I mean, you basically have a Time Stop for like almost every single ship, which buys you some time. Obviously, I think the units continue to spawn after Time Stop, but that still freezes a large amount of enemies, gives you time to reset. So, I don't know. I had her in A tier. I could definitely see B tier.
If you can see B tier,
Yeah,
that's where we'll have him because.
Yeah, I think B tier is fine. We've got a lot of people up in A, so may as well better that curve a little bit down to B.
Vorazun goes in B tier, and she has 1 prestige, so that's what she will be recommended. I'm surprised none of you mentioned Void Race with just a cloak wall. That's what I would go for. Just a wall of cybernetics cores and a bunch of Void Race over them. Or if you ask Ankalagan, Oracles. That's what he would do.
Yeah,
that's what he would do.
I don't disagree with any of that. I have been put off by the comments section from suggesting sort of overly cheesy techniques on dealing with stuff after my after the Han and Horner galleon bug on the whichever Dead of Night mutator it was. But yes, I mean, poke walls absolutely super valid. You can basically void rate your heart's content at that point. But yeah, like I say, I think probably I don't know whether one counts that as a slightly cheesy tactic or not. I'm not sure, but certainly a very valid way of doing it.
Zagara, where do we have him?
Zagara is never a happy camper on this map, really. She does have great ability to take down the laser drill. Just a few Zerglings with the upgrades are going to just absolutely rip through the laser drill. The problem then comes with dealing with the actual enemy waves, especially with self-destruction added on top. I think you definitely want to go P3 this week because that's your main, or maybe you even want to go P2. You're still going to have the problem with aberrations or melee units with that, so I'd probably still go P3 so you can have Hunter Killers and Zagara herself and Baneling Barrage from her. But it's going to be a bit tough. I had her in C mainly because I wasn't I don't know if she's a whole extra tier worse, but I'm definitely debating between C and D, I think, for Zagara this week.
C or D. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, she is going to struggle more than normal. This map doesn't do her any favors. I think that judicial deployment of bile launchers around each shuttle is going to be super useful, just giving you that little bit more splash damage around the general area. She is going to struggle, though. I totally agree with ET. I think P3 is a better choice. I think that her unit comp in general terms is going to really suffer. It is more or less exclusively melee. So self-destruction is going to be the one which sort of really sees her off. If you're playing P3 in particular, you are going to want to deal with the laser drill. Not particularly complicated, although, as I'm sure people have figured out already, one of us has unbound their F2 key and one of us hasn't. Comment below if you can guess which is which.
Correction.
But
Correction. One of us is unbound their F2 key. Two of us haven't.
two of us have not. Yeah, fair one. Yeah, I was going to say I'm the no-brainer on that. So there you go. But yeah, so Zagara is just going to struggle this week more than everyone else. I've got her in C tier.
All right, I guess C tier is where she goes. Prestige. Oh wait, yeah, we still recommend that third prestige, right? Or second prestige?
Yeah. No,
All right.
play B3.
Moving on. Zeratul. Where do we have him?
Zeratul is very good this week. He has cannons, which are extremely useful. He has mobility himself, which enables him to get to the laser drill immediately as soon as he spawns. He basically just has a pretty easy time, to be completely honest. I think there's there is a trap of just saying Zeratul cannon's good, but the reality to it is on this map as Zeratul, that's how you want to play, and it works really well. And there's nothing this week which really does a huge amount against it. His monoliths are extremely good at ensuring that his cannons are not massively affected by self-destruction. And that's kind of all there is to it, really. S tier.
What do you think, Edwin Home?
Yeah, it's really good. You can also trap the artifact on this map, which makes it all the better. So you can go P2, mass cannons, Tesseract monoliths. Zeratul himself will be able to help deal with any large, beefy targets, which the cannons can kind of deal with on their own. But you also have some splash damage, both from the Tesseract monoliths and from Zeratul's abilities. So it's a very easy week for Zeratul, as it often is. So
As it
I had him in
often
S tier.
is. All right, Zeratul goes in S tier. Do we have a double S this week?
I'd be inclined to say no. I think either way, there is still stuff to deal with for everyone.
Okay.
I can't think of anyone who sort of just negates it automatically by existing.
All right. Who's top
Yeah,
of
you
S
still
tier?
have to proactively clear and
Yes.
all that. So
And guard the laser. Who's top of S tier?
I think the top two are already correct. Honestly, I think it's Arcturus and Dehaka, and then Karax. Actually, top. This might just be right. No, I think Zeratul needs to go up above Nova, probably. Stetmann above Nova.
I was going to say I'd be inclined to put Stetmann almost above Zeratul as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think he's
kind
pretty
of help your
pretty
ally
punchy.
out a ton with healing as well. So,
Mm.
and then
They're all blocking the
I
Nova.
think Swann maybe goes above, like below Nova, I'd say, for Swann. And
Yeah,
then
I'd put
Stukov.
Tychus above Stukov probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? Actually, probably put Tychus above Swann as well. To be honest, Swann still has to think about clearing.
Yeah, that's true.
Who's top of A?
I think Abathur.
Okay. Then?
Possibly Kerrigan.
Yeah, I was
think?
going to say Kerrigan as well. So I think that
Yeah.
means it's definitely Kerrigan. I think maybe Fenix above Alarak, and then the rest of it's correct.
All right. Who's top of B?
I think Khan and Horner.
Yeah, I think that's probably getting
yeah.
the right order. I think both Vorazun and Artanis are sadly let down by a lack of splash damage, although Vorazun is cheesier, so maybe she can go above Artanis, but I think, yeah, I don't know. Depending on your play style, I think it's, yeah.
Okay. And then...
Zagara add on her own at the bottom.
All right, bottom. Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it also, please leave it in a comment. I will see you guys next time.